So we are in the middle of Chapter 7, Claudette Colvin, Twice Toward Justice. And Rosa Parks was arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus on December 2nd, 1955. So over the weekend, the community rallied and distributed flyers suggesting, encouraging, begging the African American population to avoid riding the bus on Monday, December 5th. So that's where we pick up. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. rose early the morning of Monday, December 5th, rushed to his picture window and peered out at the first buses as they moved past his house. They were nearly empty. Usually they were filled with maids and black schoolchildren. Excited, he jumped in his car and drove around Montgomery to inspect other buses during the morning commute. In an hour of driving, he saw a total of only 8 black passengers on the buses. Clearly, the message, "Please don't ride the bus at all," on Monday had reached almost everyone. That evening, a mass meeting was held at the Holt Street Baptist Church to celebrate the day's triumph and to plan for the future. By 7:00 p.m., nearly 1,000 people were wedged shoulder to shoulder inside the brightly lit church, while 4,000 more gathered outside in the chilly darkness to hear songs and speeches and prayers broadcast through makeshift speakers. Dr. King elected that just that morning as president of the Montgomery Improvement Association was the main speaker. It was his first major public speech that wasn't a church sermon, and he needed to inspire the crowd. When introduced, he grasped the sides of the pulpit and took a moment to collect himself. Turning to Rosa Parks, seated behind him in a special place of honor, he began, "Just last Thursday, one of the finest citizens in Montgomery was taken from a bus and carried to jail and arrested because she refused to give her seat to a white person. And since it had to happen, I'm happy it happened to a person like Mrs. Parks, for nobody can doubt the boundless outreach of her integrity. Nobody can doubt the height of her character. Nobody can doubt the depth of her Christian commitment." Toward the end of his address, Dr. King delivered lines for which he would be remembered. "And we are determined here in Montgomery," he said, his voice rising in intensity, "to work and fight until justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream." His passionate words rocked the church. "Standing beside love is always justice," he continued. "Not only are we using the tools of persuasion, but we've got to use the tools of coercion." When King sat down to thunderous applause, the crowd inside and outside was ready to act. The Reverend Ralph Abernathy took the pulpit and read a resolution asking that all citizens refrain from riding buses operated by Montgomery City Lines Incorporated. "All in favor of the motion, stand," Abernathy said. Everyone in the room climbed to their feet. It was the first of millions and millions of steps to come. The Montgomery bus boycott was born. Claudette. "Mom and Velma went to the mass meeting, but I stayed home. I was in a different mind. I was depressed. I was pregnant. I had been expelled from school, and I was leaving home. I had taken the NAACP records back to Rosa's house and left them with her mother. Right before Christmas, Mom drove Velma and me to Birmingham. We had Christmas there with my birth mother's family and visited some friends. Then Mom and Velma went back to Montgomery. I was on my own. That was an important time for me. My parents were so strict, especially Mom. She tried to make all the decisions for me. Being away from her in Birmingham gave me a chance to clear my head. I thought a lot about what was going down in Montgomery. A protest of some kind had been coming on for a long time. Black people weren't going to take segregation much longer. If you were Black, you experienced abuse every day of your life. Every day. You couldn't even walk through the park without looking over your shoulder for a policeman. The bus boycott was a way of expressing anger at the system at last. I was thinking, where are we going? In church, the adults kept saying Reverend King would eventually be driven out of Montgomery or they'd murder him, since whites would never give in. People were saying the boycott wouldn't succeed, but I was glad it was happening. So many black people were just struggling from day to day, most of us. We had to do it. There had been so much injustice, from Jeremiah Reeves to all the horror stories involving black women abused by white men to my own arrest. I really wanted to be a part of the boycott. I also used the time to clear my head about my own life. When I left Montgomery, everyone was saying I was mental and crazy, but I wasn't. The most horrifying part of my last year hadn't been finding out I was pregnant or getting kicked out of school. It was the sound of the jailer's key in the cell door. It was my arrest. And I had gotten through that. The pregnancy was, in a way, a chance to regroup and think about my life. I was a healthy young woman, and I was going to have this baby, and I would deal with motherhood when it came. I could take the GED, a high school equivalency exam, in Montgomery and get my diploma that way. I only stayed in Birmingham in about 2 weeks. I missed my dad, QP. He was always there for me. Besides, I'd had justice on my mind for a long time. Just because I was pregnant didn't change my mission. I had been talking about revolution ever since Jeremiah Reeves. I wanted to be part of the bus boycott, even if I couldn't be a leader. I had helped get all this started. So I went back home.